So this is a survey of a first floor flat in a Victorian property in London. There's a flat roof. It was recently replaced. There are concerns about whether there's ongoing leaking. My perspective, it's highly unlikely that there was ongoing leaking. I think that the damp signs were from past penetrating damp and that the mould is from poor ventilation. But have a look at the survey. Saying how we're seeing mould up here. So if we zoom in there and up there, we're seeing mould. We're also seeing some staining. So staining is caused by water moving through building material. It's typically caused by rainwater penetrating damp or leak, but can be caused by what's called interstitial condensation, where you're getting the condensation within the building itself. And flat roofs often have this issue. They're primarily caused by sudden heat loss, but it is also a build-up of vapour within the roof void itself. And anyway, when you're getting mould, you've got excess vapour, and so you can get mould in a discrete area where you've got a leak because it's just been effectively you're not getting the airflow around that leak, and so it can be discrete or it can be general, and because it's in such an open area, it tells me that it's a general vapour issue. But the data loggers will tell us a lot and give us lots of information about the conditions and what to do about it. So we'll look at those now. Quite revealing. This is the thermal imaging camera, and it shows you where you get the cold, where you get the heat loss, and you notice how you're getting a lot of heat loss in that zone because it's obviously you've got the roof, and it's a flat roof, so it's not going to have particularly good insulation. So you've got some sort of glossy paint on here, and there is damp, there's staining, and let's just have a look at it. Well, actually, funnily enough, it's relatively dry. I'd say your biggest problem is mould. That's a bit damp there. I think you need to actually take this type of stain block off. It's fine for, you've got a sort of oil-based stain block, which is what I'm recommending for your hygroscopic salts. But here I think you need to have breathable paint. So again, Zinza do an aqueous-based paint, which isn't as effective as a stain block, but it does allow the wall to breathe. So you're not going to get sweating that you're getting at the moment. But this actually, it's much drier than it looks. You've got trickled vents, but they look like they're completely blocked up with soot, and they're not very effective. So I'm just going to put this onto, so that's telling me that's dry despite the way it looks. So that's good news. The fan's working well, it's above 15 meters a second, so that's pretty good. I'm seeing mould in here. So I'm going to see how long it lasts. I'll extend it to 30 minutes. So for anyone that wants to increase the overrun on these fans, it's very easy to do. It's this one here. It's clockwise, so you have to make sure that it's turned off at the isolator first before touching it. That should be full 30 minutes now. I'll also clean the fan out a bit. So we're just checking the overrun, make sure it's, and this is a little bit of clean up. After clean up, and now we're checking the overrun. So in this case, I got it the wrong way around first time. I checked it, and I'll do the opposite and put it back, or put it the other way around. And then that should be 45 minutes now. Oh, 30 minutes, should I say. Give it a nice clean up. So here we've got a bedroom. There was an old chimney breast there, and there's some dampness there from hygroscopic salts. The hygroscopic salts come from the coal, the burning of coal historically. Is it okay if I just stand on, just...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's it.
So this is on masonry, and so this is where the hygroscopic salts are, but it's currently dry. It's got a stained block paint on it. Well, it's currently dry anyway.
Getting progressively worse. That was what we.
The stains are being
So
the stains are becoming progressively worse, or the mould?
The mould.
Just the general.
Mould. Yeah.
So actually, these stains predate the roof being replaced. So it may be that the roof was defective and that it's now solved, because it's not damp there.
Mm-hmm.
Not. There's hardly any high damp meter reading.
Right.
There's a marginal one in one small place, but that's not indicative of penetrating damp. You'd expect to see a much wider expanse. It's not indicative of the amount of staining that you're getting. So that's historic staining, and you want to cover with a stain block that's an aqueous space that allows. I would also remove the sort of plastic coating that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll show you actually. Given that there's lining paper anyway, it's probably worth getting. So I've got this is a lining paper with insulation. So it looks a lot prettier than this because this has been trampled on and a bit, mucked up.
Yeah.
But this will cost £50 a roll. You want to get the adhesive that they recommend. It's called Wool Rock thermal lining paper, and I would put it around there.
Mm-hmm.
You will have an edge to it.
We can figure it out.
You think about it, and also the other thing is it's going to be difficult to get it down there. Anyway, that's an option. So I put a camera up on the outside to see whether there are any cracks or gaps or causes of water, and although there are past cracks and there is a risk of ongoing penetrating damp, that's not where the water was. The water was from the roof, and I had looked from above the roof and it looked fine. It is bitumen felt, which doesn't last long, but I think it should be fine. Have a look at the data loggers now. I urge you to use this website. It's called damp.ai/detect. You can load your files so that all three are here already, and look at the damp wall. So this is next to the window, and the source of vapor. So the kitchen is the nearest source of vapor in this case. The time of the survey, the temperature of the coldest part of the damp wall was 13.6. I'm going to put it at 8:15. That's working out the surface relative humidity. And actually, it's largely below 85%. But if you go above this 85% for prolonged periods of time, that's when you have the risk of high surface relative humidity and mould. Mould grows where relative humidity, or the surface relative humidity, goes above 85% for long periods of time. So I was basing that on the thermal imaging camera. If the thermal imaging camera, or if there was a part of the wall that was, say, 12 degrees centigrade, you can see that there's a long period when you're above the 85%. But 13.5 is what we had, so that's what I'm going to put in. So compared to some of the properties I go to, there's actually, the ventilation's not too bad. So do you see this? This is the blue line. This is the dew point line. The dew point is a measure of both the amount of vapor in air and also the temperature that condensation takes place at. Mold generally takes place 3 degrees above the dew point, but it's over extended periods of time. I think if you focus on getting the dew point below the external temperature, which you have during a large period of time, then you'll solve your damp problem. The other thing you have to remember is where there's mold, it can be that it's localized, caused by the vapor drying from the past penetrating damp, and that it could be long standing. That's to say that it wasn't growing during the period of this investigation, but unless you remove it, it will just remain there in clear sight. So what I want to do is get you to improve the ventilation. So the bathroom vent is working better now. Kitchen doesn't have a vent, and you're drying clothes internally. So if you use a dehumidifier, you'll drop this down to below the pink line here. And that is by knowing what the external temperature is. You can look it up on websites like bbc.co.uk/weather. I run this daily, so I update it daily, but obviously that's historic. There are large periods when it's very high. So this line here, this is called the dew point differential. Because the data loggers were in the same room, there isn't a huge difference, but essentially where there's where the where it's above the line, that is because there's more vapor coming from the damp wall compared to the vapor source. So in this case, there's more vapor coming from the kitchen, which is not surprising. And I would say that although there's spikes in the kitchen, it's dissipating quite quickly, and that's because there's no door to the kitchen. There's no ventilation, there's no door to the kitchen, and obviously you're drying clothes in there. So you've got all the issues, but as a first floor flat, you're less likely to less likely to have condensation and rising damp like conditions because you're it's normally warmer and you're more likely to open the window. But yeah, follow my recommendations and you should be fine going forward.